Hi there. In this QuickBooks Online video, we'll continue with our company setup. We'll add some customers, including their balances. So we'll see what happens with that. Vendors, same thing. We'll add some bank accounts, including their balances. We'll import some inventory, which we haven't seen before in level 1, and we'll also add some account balances, and we'll also be able to see some of the details that come with the hierarchical structure of the accounts, that is, accounts and their sub-accounts. So I'm going to quickly go to QuickBooks, or sorry, Intuit. QuickBooks.Intuit. And I'm again using the US site. Shouldn't affect me now that I already have an account, but just to make sure, I'll always choose that one. And I'll sign in. QuickBooks Online. And I'll use a different ID. Actually, I think this is good. And you'll see that I don't presently have any customers. Or suppliers. Vendors. Or inventory. So I'll quickly add those things, as well as adding a new bank account, and again, we'll take a look at the hierarchical structure. So I'm going to quickly go to Sales, Customers, Add Customer Manually, and this is Marjorie Jansen. And again, we can collect all of their information if we like. I'm just going to keep it simple and get her first and last name. And this is something we haven't seen before in level 1, opening balance. So I'm going to add an opening balance. As of 3 days ago, 3 business days. And I'm going to choose Save. So that creates Marjorie Jansen, and it also creates an invoice. So if you entered the date wrong or the amount wrong, you can always open up this invoice and edit it. So here's the invoice here. So again, if it was incorrect, we can change anything about it that we like. I'm going to quickly add a vendor in the same way. So expenses, vendors, manually. This is a business. And again, I would add all of their information in real life, but just to keep this simple, I'm just going to add the opening balance as of 3 days ago. That'll affect some things, so I'm going 3 days ago, as far as demonstration purposes. So, if I look at expenses, you see that a bill is created. And just like on the receivable side, I can open up that bill. And you'll see that it's using the category Other Miscellaneous Expenses to create an opening balance. So again, we can change that here or make an adjustment, whatever we like to do, so we can change the date and the amount if it's incorrect. We can always find that transaction. The reason I point this out is that that's not true with other accounting packages. When you add opening balances, sometimes they're set in stone. You have to fudge things to get the correct balance if you make an error. I'm going to quickly add a bank account. So a quick way to get there, accounting chart of accounts. I'll make this bank accounts, tax forms section checking, and this will be First Sound Bank checking. And we can add an opening balance. Again, I'm going to use as of 3 days ago, 3 business days. And the balance on that day was $89.37.54. And save. So again, an entry gets entered. If you need to modify that, again, if you make a mistake with the date or the amount, you can view the register. We'll look at this in more detail, but there's the amount there. If we need to change it, we can quickly change the date or the amount. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is import some inventory. So in level 1, we created it, each piece of inventory or service one at a time, but we can basically bulk create with a tabular format. So I'm going to quickly go to my sales, products and services, and I'm going to add an item. And I'm going to close that, and it's going to be just under the new icon we have import. And I always download the sample file. Now in my notes I go to the settings to double check that I have something switched on. This is one of the questions I answered when I set up the company. It's basically tracking inventory. So it's actually tracking the quantity on hand, which is important. If you don't have that turned on, when you download the sample file, that column will not be available. So you have to turn that on before you download the sample file. I've already turned it on in my company setup. I'm going to quickly click on that. Opens up, downloads a sample, piece of sample data there. Oops, sorry. I'm going to enable editing. And I'm just going to leave a service and an inventory here because they're good samples there. And I'm just going to delete all of my other. Notice we have to remove that as well. Delete my other rows. Now, the very first item that I'm going to create is a service item, so it has no associated income, has no associated asset account or cost account. Also, in Washington, it's not taxable. So this is repair service. And it is equipment repair. It's a service. I'm charging $35 for that. It's not taxable. And notice nothing else is filled out there. Now, I'm not going to use some of these fields, so I'm going to remove them just to keep this process streamlined. I'm just going to resize everything here. I don't need a purchase description. Everything else I'm keeping. Now you have to check your chart of accounts. Mine's at its default, so I already know what the account names are, but they have to be exact, or they don't have to be exact. But if you don't enter them exactly, then you'll have to match them later on. So I always like to check first and then add them. So income account for that is sales. There is no purchase costs, expense account, quantity on hand, reorder point for services, of course, right? And then I'm going to quickly add Acer laptop. Sales. Expense account is cost of goods sold. So that account exists in the chart of accounts with exactly that same name. The quantity on hand and quantity as of date and purchase cost is all required. Reorder point, I'm going to use 2 for everything. Asset account is inventory asset account. Quantity as of date. For me, it's day, month, year. It may depend on your system settings, but I think it's day, month, year for the entire system. So I'm going to use 3 days ago. So I'm going to use 23/9/2022. Should work. And if you're familiar with Excel, you'll notice that a lot of these will have, if you have several service items, you can autofill down. So you can quickly populate this thing with data because it's Excel quite a bit quicker than filling out each field in a form in the online system. So I'm all set. I can just save this and upload it. And by the way, when I import things into an online database, I always download the sample and then modify that and then upload. Then I'm ensured that everything's in the correct order and expressed the correct way. There's a lot of little details there. So I'm going to save this. This is bracket 1. I don't need those additional features, and I'll upload it. Next, it likes everything. I don't have to map. Notice quantity on hand is the same as quantity on hand because again I left the column headings. I choose next, and inventory asset account. That should be, oh, just plain old inventory asset. That was my error. So it gives you a chance to fix the data. If you just click on that 0, it'll clear the red. Should be just inventory asset, not inventory asset account. So it does give you, the system gives you an opportunity to fix any errors. If there are any errors and you choose import, those records sometimes will not get imported depending on the error. So I choose import. And now I have a repair service and an Acer laptop. Now the last thing I'm going to do is add some accounts to the chart of accounts. And again, the reason I'm doing this particular example is so we can take a look at how the hierarchical structure works with both QuickBooks desktop and online. So if I choose accounting here, chart of accounts, I'll create a new asset, and this is my company car. So vehicles. The account name is company car. If you have more than one, you can say company cars. And I'll choose save. Create a new one. Assets. I'm going to save this one under company car. So it'll be a subcategory of company car. And vehicles is fine for tax forms section. The account name is company car cost. This is what I paid for it. And that'll be, I'm going to use 5 days ago just to be absolutely certain here. And I paid $5,000 for that. And I'll choose save. Choose new. Now this one is going to be my accumulated depreciation, but I'm still going to use assets here. I'm going to put it under company car. It'll be alongside company car cost. Tax form section, I'm going to use accumulated depreciation. And I'm going to call this company car depreciation. And for its balance, again 5 days ago, or some such thing, I'm going to use a negative value and save. So now you see when I go to that section of my chart of accounts, we're looking at just the chart of accounts. So right in the chart of accounts we can see company car here. Oh, it's put it in as positive, I use negative, so you can always go back to the view register to fix that. That should be negative. Don't worry about that, we'll see that later. And now, if I go back to my chart of accounts, you see we have the actual value of company car. It's a subcategory of vehicles. So this top level account here is doing arithmetic on everything below it. So is this. So we can look at a glance, the value of company cars is what we paid minus the depreciation. So it's actually doing arithmetic right in the chart of accounts, which is handy. And we can also get to the actual entry that was created when we added to the balance via the register. And we'll look at the register in more detail in level 2. Sorry, in lesson 2. So again, that was continuing with the new company setup. We added customers, vendors with their balances, and we saw where we can edit those balances. Bank accounts, imported inventory this time, and added some additional chart of accounts. Thanks so much for watching.